Hello everybody, welcome in. This is Todd with Zilla Fantasy Elite. Catch me on Twitter at ToddZilla1337. Give me a follow on there. Let's talk some DFS together. And obviously, this is the YouTube channel. Go ahead, click that subscribe button, click the bell so you get the update every single time a video is released from here. And one last place, Zilla Fantasy Elite from Facebook. Go over to the Facebook and type in Zilla Fantasy Elite. Give me a follow on there and see some of the DFS lineups that I'm posting. And when some of these videos drop, certainly interact with me there. Those are the places to follow me. And this is the Week 15 slate, which has 11 games. There's 2 of them on Saturday, so those ones will be out. That's Green Bay and Carolina, and I believe it's Buffalo and Denver will be Saturday, so they are not on the main slate this week. Just the 11 games. Kind of an interesting slate. We have 3 games above 51 from Vegas for a total. Another one hanging out kind of there at 49.5. And then the rest of them are 48.5 or below, which are kind of low scoring. So you have a few concentrated games there at the top, but also you have a few of the lower scoring games like number 6 and number 9 out of this 11 game slate, which also have the tied for second most team total. Implied team total is just a lower total Vegas game because their opponent is supposed to get blown out, but they have a high team implied total. So we'll get to that when we get there to those games. Just a little recap from last week. I personally did not do very well last week. Should have followed more of my advice that was given on the DFS show. I overweighted myself on the Tampa Bay Minnesota game because I didn't think a lot of people were going to be on there, and I saw it shooting out. Definitely did not happen that way, and yeah, I only had like 2 out of my 20 lineups in the pooch punt actually return value for that. Otherwise, I mean, if you go back and you look at the suggested targets for Week 14, there was a lot of hits on there for, you know, Derrick Henry was a smash. I was underweight on him, but yeah, there was a lot of the ones that were suggested for Week 14 hit. I just didn't take them because I wanted to risk it for the biscuit on the Tampa Bay Minnesota game, and I didn't get any biscuits. So unfortunately for me, didn't win money last week. So let's get this Week 15 slate underway, shall we? We're going to do a little bit different format this time. I'm going to go from highest Vegas total games and on down. So I'm going to be kind of cruising around in between these games just to give you a forewarning. With that being said, number 1 game on the slate, actually tied for number 1, is Detroit at Tennessee. And you can see here this is a noon game, but it's a 51.5 point total, tied for number 1 on the slate out of the 11 games. Being bet down by Vegas by 1 point since it opened, so it opened at 52.5 points. And what are we seeing from the adjusted line play report? We are seeing Tennessee offense should be started. Basically everyone. This is the number 1 team implied total on the week. We see them at 31.5 points. So basically 4 touchdowns and a field goal coming from Tennessee in this game. We look over here, pass protection offense, number 8, so top 10. Detroit not generating any pressure. Quarterbacks are going to be just fine back there. Tannehill should have plenty of time to pass if he so chooses. If they go that route and they want to pass the ball, it's going to be going to A.J. Brown and Corey Davis. Those are about the only guys I feel like starting now because the tight ends have burned me so much from Tennessee now. You know, I love me some Jonnu Smith over there, super athletic. He just doesn't get the targets, and then the tight end targets are spread between 3 guys anyway, with Ferkser and all these other dudes there. So I'm going to avoid the tight end position from Tennessee. If I do Tannehill stacks, which if you're in a tournament, you're going to see a very, very, very high rostership percentage on Derrick Henry this week in both cash games and GPP. Cash games, smash Derrick Henry everywhere you can get him in there. He should be a cash game lock. But for tournaments, you want to be different from other people. Eating chalk is always necessary at certain positions, but should this happen to be just a Tennessee pass game, and Henry has his 20 carries for 85 yards and doesn't score, and Tannehill gives you 4 touchdowns, throws a couple to A.J. Brown and Corey Davis, maybe runs one in, you're going to be looking at not a lot of people doing that type of stack, considering Henry is going to be so favored. But that's a good way to get different anyway in a GPP lineup, is kind of fading Henry. By all means, start him in every single lineup. He's going to smash this week. But if you want to win a tournament, that might be an option. So Tannehill, A.J. Brown, Corey Davis. If you want to get super different, Jonnu Smith or Firkser, Michael Pruitt if you're absolutely punting. But otherwise, Henry, cash game lock, get him in your GPP lineups. He could easily go for 40 on the Detroit run defense there, because we see third in run blocking, Detroit 30th. They just give gaping holes. It's Detroit, it's Houston. Those teams just bleed points and yards to the running back position. So Henry should smash by all means. It's just a matter of getting contrarian in those GPP lineups if you want to actually take home number one. Henry will be super popular, so you'll have to get different elsewhere if you want to win those tournaments. We're not looking to get 50th. 50th would be nice, but you want that number one spot for the high end there in the tournaments. And with this being said, we have the Tennessee pass rush is actually 32nd. So Stafford's doubtful to play in my eyes. I don't think he's going to play. He's got some rib injuries there. I think it's going to be the backup, and he's got super low A-dot average anyway. And if that's the case, I just see the low A-dot players probably making a difference there in Detroit, and then kind of their pass game. If you're expecting Tennessee to be up here, Detroit's going to have to pass regardless. You're looking at Marvin Jones. He's number one in air yards over the last 4 weeks. He's number one over pretty much everybody. And then Hawkinson would be a guy that you could get in no matter what. He's going to be good with Stafford, and he'll be good with Chase Daniels. And then if you wanted to run a really contrarian one, you could get maybe a DeAndre Swift in there if you think he's going to get 5 or 6 receptions in that game, especially for a DraftKings lineup where they get a point per reception. But that is the number one game on the slate. Kind of spend a little bit more time on these games, a little less time on the bottom end games. And yeah, that's Detroit at Tennessee. Let's move on to the next one here. We have Kansas City at New Orleans, which is tied with that game. We have them right there. Let's get that centered. So Kansas City at New Orleans, we have a 51.5 point total there. New Orleans, 3-point underdogs. If I didn't say it before, in that Detroit-Tennessee game, we have Detroit as 11-point underdogs, so they're expected to be down big time, which would lead most likely to a Henry type of game there. But yeah, the Kansas City-New Orleans game is supposed to be a little bit closer. 3-point underdogs at home for New Orleans there. Latest news just came out a few hours ago. Drew Brees is expected to start here, but I would expect him to be eased in somewhat, so I think Taysom Hill will still get some reps. They might even get Winston in there in a package or two, but I expect Taysom Hill to still take some relief from that. And with the way that this adjusted line play report is coming out and just kind of football narrative, I think you're going to be able to play the New Orleans run game. This 51.5 point total, by the way, is bet up 1 point from Vegas, so people think that's going to go up from where it opened at 50.5. But the adjusted line play report here suggesting New Orleans run game, 7th in offensive run blocking, Kansas City 22nd against the run. This would be Alvin Kamara. We do have news now that Michael Thomas is going to be out, especially on the DraftKings where you get the point per reception. I think Kamara, especially if this game is close or Kansas City is boat racing them, Kamara is just going to get a ton of usage. So Kamara in the cash game. Kamara also definitely viable for a 30-point game on either site with his skill set against Kansas City there. If you wanted to do a Latavius Murray, probably not out of the realm of acceptability, but I'd be looking at Kamara only in this game. And then on the Kansas City side, it's kind of weird. You're going to see that they're not going to be able to run the ball. New Orleans, number one on defense against the run. Kansas City, kind of middle of the road there. They don't like to run anyway, and I don't think they're going to be able to move the ball on the ground against New Orleans. So it's going to be mostly the pass attack from Kansas City. And I just think with the way this is, I think New Orleans and Sean Payton, they're just going to want to grind it out and kind of smack it to Kansas City. Sean Payton seems like he's got some hubris there, and he'd probably like to see nothing better than to them just to stomp them on the ground, knowing Kansas City's air attack is just ridiculous. He's gonna want to go in there and show them, hey, we're just gonna run the ball all over you guys. And I think, for me personally, this could end up in a game script where New Orleans is just kind of draining that clock on the run game, just keeping Kansas City off the field, moving the ball on the ground, and picking up yardage here and there through the air. But with that being said, if that's the game script that's going to happen, Kansas City is going to have a little bit less opportunities in their pass game and offense overall, and you're going to need to get more efficient on the Kansas City side. And really, if you're going to have the pass game there from Kansas City being the only options, Mahomes obviously in play any week, no matter who you're playing. But the quicker strike people would be Tyreek Hill, it'd be Mecole Hardman type people. But other people in the pass game that you could get, Sammy Watkins, a cheap option there if you are stacking other games and just want to get a piece of this. Sammy Watkins is a cheaper option there. Tyreek Hill would be the quick strike option. And then obviously you have Travis Kelce as well. You can get him in there. He's always viable no matter what. He's going to be probably the top scoring tight end on the slate. But keep that in mind for this game. I think it could have a weird game script compared to what people are thinking. But that's the second highest, or the tie for the first highest total there, but second game that we've gone over. Let's go to number 3 here, Houston at Indianapolis. And let's get right here. So we have this game, Houston at Indy, 51 points, so just a half game behind there, third highest out of the 11. This is being bet down 1 by Vegas since it opened. Indianapolis, 7-point home favorites. Probably going to lend itself more to a rushing game. Houston's rush defense absolutely horrendous. So that being said, Indianapolis's run blocking is kind of neutralized there, and their pass protection is really good. Houston actually pretty good at getting after the quarterback, generating pressure. Indianapolis's line, bad at run blocking, good at pass protection. I think it's kind of neutralized by Houston's really bad run defense and pretty solid pass rush defense. So, that being said, you're just going to want your usual suspects in a game like this. And I think at Indianapolis, you're going to be looking at Jonathan Taylor against Houston. He's going to be the super popular play, but he should smash. Also, cash game, he could bust. I mean, we see every once in a while Frank Wright gets in his Nyheim Heinz, and he ends up with a few touchdowns. You could see that kind of happening here. If you wanted to get a really contrarian stack, I don't think you're going to see a lot of Phillip Rivers in the Indy pass game, but with the neutralization of Houston's pass defense there with their offensive line, you could see just a normal game back and forth there, and a Phillip Rivers, Michael Pittman Jr., and T.Y. Hilton type of stack might be very contrarian. You might get a low rostership percentage there. And those are the type of things where you can get different from a GPP stack where you're getting people that are really low rostered on that particular stack. It's going to be relatively cheap, and it allows you to get some of these more expensive, like if you want a one-off Tyreek Hill, or maybe a one-off Alvin Kamara, or get Alvin Kamara and Tyreek Hill in that game coming back with like the Phillip Rivers and Pittman Jr., T.Y. Hilton type of stack. That's something that you could get in there. That's a very interesting GPP type of play. On the Houston side, we basically look at Indianapolis's defense actually in this game. So their defense 8th, offensive run blocking Houston. Houston won't be able to run the ball. They're 31st in pass protection. Indianapolis kind of middle of the road, so they should be able to generate pressure on Houston, which means a little bit more pressure on Deshaun Watson. I don't expect him necessarily to have a great game, but probably going to see a few more rushing attempts, a few more rush yards from him, and then the low A-dot targets there in Houston. We would be attacking Kiki QT and Um, maybe Hansen. Don't know so much about that, or Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks should be a pretty safe play in this one as well, especially with the third highest game total out of here if it kind of gets out of control, and I expect Houston to be behind most of this game. Cooks should be a solid play there, but Houston side, if you want to get contrarian, Phillip Rivers and Michael Pittman Jr., T.Y. Hilton would be all right. But the smash play here is going to be Jonathan Taylor. You're going to have a lot of people there. Cash game viable, but a little bit riskier there because he's not always getting the touchdowns there. But he should smash against Houston. Wouldn't be surprised to see him bust off another 60-yard touchdown against them with wide open, gaping holes. All right, so that's the third game on the slate. Let's look at number 4, which is Philadelphia at Arizona. We'll bounce down over here, get that on, and we see a 49.5 point total, like I said, number 4 out of 11 on the slate. This has been bet up 2 points, actually, since it opened at 47.5, so the Vegas bettors expecting it to go over on this, which is kind of an interesting game for this adjusted line play report. We see a bad run game for Arizona with Philly 5th against the run in defensive adjusted line yards, and Arizona 23rd in offensive run blocking. So Arizona probably won't be able to run very well in this, which is going to lead to having to move the ball more in the passing game. But if we look at it, they're top 10 in offensive pass protection, but Philly is number 1 at generating pressure. They are very good at getting their upfront pressure. Obviously against the run they're good, and then against the pass they're just getting after the quarterback. We saw for a while there that Kyler Murray was probably injured, had a little shoulder injury. I think if they get after him, he's going to have to scramble a lot more, and you could see him with a really interesting run total in this game. And I think it's going to be one of those games where if you're stacking him with anybody, it's going to be the low A-dot target. So this could be a DeAndre Hopkins and Kyler Murray type stack on that side if you want to run that. But it's just kind of a weird game script there where Philly's coming in with a very similar guy in Jalen Hurts. Arizona's pass rush 11th, Philly's pass protection dead last at 32nd. Arizona should also be able to get after Philadelphia with a scrambling type quarterback, just like Kyler Murray. He should be able to get out of the pocket. You're going to see a lot more rush attempts probably from Jalen Hurts again this week, and he is viable as well. So you have Kyler and Jalen Hurts in this game, potentially viable. And then looking at the low A-dot targets there as well, you're probably looking at Greg Ward, actually. In the 6 quarters that we've seen Jalen Hurts here, it's been Ward who's been getting most of the targets there from Jalen Hurts, and he's more the underneath guy. So Greg Ward, I think if you are looking to get a little different in a tournament, you get the upside rushing from Jalen Hurts, and if he throws one in to Greg Ward, those are super cheap options which allow you to get up to the Tyreek Hill and Kamara and potentially getting like a Derrick Henry on your squad and then coming back with a rushing upside quarterback like that and get his one person that he throws the touchdown to, Greg Ward. That would be a pretty solid option there in a GPP. I wouldn't be touching that in cash game. If I did go a cash game route, I wouldn't be stacking on the Philadelphia side. I would just get Jalen Hurts and get his rushing upside. But yeah, besides that, you might be looking at a Dallas Goedert as a low A-dot option as well there from Philly. Arizona used to be really bad last year against the tight end, so-so this year, but those would be the 2 low A-dot targets I'd be looking at, Greg Ward and Dallas Goedert. If you think he's going to bomb one out and Reagor is going to ball out in this game, that's potential, but he'd be the only other guy from Philly I'd be looking at just strictly as a tournament option. But that is the 4th highest one there on the slate. Let's move on to number 5, which is the Tampa Bay game here versus Atlanta. So that is a noon game. We have a 48.5 point total with Atlanta 6 point home underdogs there. Tampa Bay favored on the road. This has been bet down 3 points since the opening, so Vegas expecting this to go down, and I'm not exactly sure what the reasoning behind that is, but Julio's out, so that's probably why it's been being bet down. They just don't move the ball as well in Atlanta when Julio's out. But with that being said, the adjusted line play report on this is suggesting the Tampa Bay pass game yet again. I know we all got burned from them last week because of Minnesota game. That could lead to lower roster percentages for that Tampa Bay pass game. You're looking at Tampa Bay. I'm probably going to get a stack or two of him in there, and then stacking them with Evans and Gronk or Godwin, Brown. Also options in there, but if I'm going to do a Tom Brady stack, it's probably going to be a double stack, and it's going to be Evans and Gronk. And then on the Atlanta side, if you want to run it back, we see that Tampa Bay third in defensive adjusted line yards against the run. Atlanta 22nd in offensive run blocking. Don't expect Atlanta to run the ball. Todd Gurley basically toast. They're not running the ball very well in general, so they're going to have to pass it. No Julio Jones. Tampa Bay third in the pass rush. Atlanta 20th in offensive pass protection. Tampa Bay probably generating a lot of pressure against Atlanta as well. It's going to lead to your lower A-dot targets for Atlanta, which is going to be Russell Gage with Julio Jones out. Expect him to have a higher target volume this week. And Hayden Hurst would also be the lower A-dots. Depending if they're game planning without Julio, you might see Ridley in there getting a bit more shorter routes. And the dude's a tactician, or just a phenomenal route runner, so he should be able to get open at will. Those would be the three Atlanta targets if you're going to run it back from that Tampa Bay stack. But that's going to be the Tampa Bay-Atlanta game. Not super excited for those pieces on the Atlanta side. Tampa Bay, definitely excited in those. But Vegas is betting this down, thinking that they're not going to score what they thought at the beginning of the week. Julio's out. Atlanta likely not likely to move the ball. And with that being said, on the Tampa Bay side, I did say the pass attack. Ronald Jones is expected to be out. I think he's got COVID exposure, which could lead him to actually playing, but he also broke his pinky and got surgery on it this week. Arians has already come out and basically said he's not going to play, and then I think Fournette's going to be the heaviest play for that. You could get him into a cash game lineup here, but Atlanta's pretty solid against the run. They're sixth there. I just don't see him having any upside, so don't get Fournette in a tournament. I don't think he's got any upside in this game. You could do a cash game with him since he should have, 15 to 18 carries potentially. Maybe he gets a reception or two, but Arians basically said he's not going to be the third down back, and he should see 12 to 18 touches potentially, especially if they get up big in this game. You could see Fournette with some touches, but other than a very low cash game, kind of dart throw, I'd be avoiding that aspect of the Tampa Bay game. That was number 5 on the slate. Let's get over to number 6, which is Baltimore, the Jacksonville-Baltimore game here. Take a peek here. We have a 47.5 point total. Number 6 out of the 11 on the slate, but we have Baltimore here. It's second highest team implied total at 30 and a quarter there. We have Tennessee at 31 and a quarter. Baltimore just behind there. We have Baltimore 13-point home favorites. They should absolutely smash Jacksonville. This has been bet up 1.5 points since it opened. Basically, we have a stalemate here. This is one of those stalemate type of matchups where you're just going to want to end up playing your usual suspects. The best matchup, according to the adjusted line play report, is Jacksonville run blocking at 8. Baltimore, middle of the pack there. Against the run, James Robinson certainly in play there. About the only piece from Jacksonville I'm going to want in this game. And then the Baltimore is going to be a very interesting side there. I don't know if you're going to get a lot of Lamar Jackson rostered in this week. He's been largely disappointing. He had a big week last week, but this might be one where people are looking at it. They're going to attack the run game there, but then they got 3 options in the run game, so I'm not exactly sure what the roster percentage is going to be on Baltimore, but Lamar Jackson is somebody that I'd be looking to play from the usual suspects type of narrative there with the stalemate at pretty much every other place. And then if we're going to be using some of these pass attacks, it's just going to be Lamar and one guy. Don't double stack. Lamar is too good on the ground anyway, and every time he runs, he's not getting pass yards to the guys that you're throwing to. But Mark Andrews certainly somebody that could get a score or 2 or 3 against Jacksonville. They've been really bad against the tight end. Otherwise, what is kind of my favorite GPP play this week is I think you're going to be looking at Hollywood Brown missing. You're going to be seeing who else is supposed to be out. It's like their top 3 wideouts are going to be missing. So you're going to be looking at Devin Duvernay, Des Bryant, and Willie Snead probably being your top three options there at wide receiver in Baltimore. And I kind of like that for GPPs. They're super cheap, especially if we expect Baltimore to be huge favorites like that. Des, very vocal on social media the last few weeks with his COVID testing and warming up and then being pulled off the field due to a positive test, and then everything came back negative, and it's like, well, what's going on here? I could see them game planning to get him a touchdown or 2 in the red zone. He's a sneaky dart throw for me this week. Otherwise, Willie Snead, we've seen had some good games there. A guy just produces. He's an excellent football player without much athletic ability, so he could be somebody that you're looking at there. And all of these guys are going to have low rostership percentage. If you're looking for the quick hitter that's not Marquise Brown, that's Devin Duvernay. The dude's super fast. I think he's 4.3 speed, so he's the one-hit guy. Hit a deep bomb, hit it underneath, he could take it to the house. Those are the type of plays that you want when you're doing dart throws. You want the guy that's going to score on one deep play, get you 14 points in one shot. Those are the type of guys that you like. Otherwise, if you want to go the narrative, Baltimore's up, they're going to have lots of scoring opportunities, and they're going to squeaky wheel gets the grease. Des Bryant, maybe he gets a touchdown or 2, and you're looking at 12 to 20 points from him in this game. But just an interesting game with that stalemate there. That'd be some of the one-offs I'm looking more so on the Baltimore side, and maybe running Lamar Jackson, Andrews, or Lamar Jackson, Dez, or Duvernay, or Willie Snead type stacks. Just to get different, you're not going to get a lot of rostership percentage on that. If it hits, you're going to be way above the field on that and just smashing everyone in those tournaments. Also, those cheap wide receivers, keep them in mind, because if you want to stack in Henry and Kamara in your lineups and think they're just going to absolutely smash either in mostly for a GPP, I wouldn't be looking at those guys for a cash game, but in a GPP, if you want to get those high upside guys in there, excellent guys to look at for this week. Keep them in mind. Baltimore, second highest team implied total. Could be not only fantasy gold, but looking at actual gold into your coffers there with that matchup. On to the 7th out of 11 on the slate, we have Chicago at Minnesota, which is right above here. 46-point total. We have Minnesota 3-point home favorites, so shouldn't be a runaway game there. Vegas just betting it down a half a point since it opened, so pretty much where it was at. The adjusted line play report just suggesting kind of the Chicago offense. We look at Minnesota defense, 24th in the rush defense. Chicago, middle of the road, pass protection there. Trubisky probably have a little bit more time than he's accustomed to. He's also mobile, so if they're not getting after him, he should have a more comfortable game in general. But then we see adjusted line yards on defense against the run. Minnesota, really poor. Chicago, not very good either in the run game, but they should see some success there. It's just one of those where it's a little bit in favor of Chicago. I don't see this like as a smash play, but Chicago should be able to move the ball a little bit better than usual. So Trubisky, if you're going to go that route, I wouldn't necessarily consider him for anything other than a GPP play. But Allen Robinson, somebody I think you can get in your cash games and a GPP play. You should be all right. It's probably going to be the first week I don't have Mooney in any of my lineups. I'm just not super impressed with this game. I don't see there's better plays, I think, for these cheap one-hit options. Watch this be the week that he goes off for crazy because I finally didn't play him, but that's kind of who I'd be looking at. And then you can look at Cole Kmet as well if you're going to go the pass game route there, or just want a tight end that's in this game. I think what I've been hearing from the DFS people, Kmet's going to be really popular, which is kind of weird, but keep that in mind on the Kmet side when you put him in there. He's probably going to be a higher roster person. And on the Minnesota side, I put a question mark on Dalvin Cook here. Obviously, the dude smashes. They're number 1 in run blocking, but Chicago number 9 in the adjusted line yards. They did lose somebody for a while there. I can't remember if he came back on defense, but we saw last week that they had no problem moving the ball against Tampa Bay, and I think their run defense is the absolute best in the league, and they are basically shut down on everyone. Minnesota still found success smashing the ball down their throats. So keep that in mind. I think Dalvin Cook, you're going to get him a lot lower roster percentage than Derrick Henry this week just because the matchup looks scary on paper. He could be a way to get different in a JPP lineup where if everybody's on Henry and he kind of faults, you get the same price range, a little bit cheaper. Dalvin Cook there, he also catches passes. But so that's the DraftKings kind of play. But he's getting like 25 to 30 touches pretty much every game. They said they want to reduce his workload, but they just can't because Alexander Madison's getting recovering from some surgery there, and he just gets beat to death by Minnesota there. So Dalvin is probably a decent play this week and a good way to get contrarian in the GPP lineup. Other than that, we see Chicago's defensive pass rush 13th, Minnesota 26th in offensive pass protection. Lead yourself to the lower A-dot targets for Kirk Cousins. So you're looking at Irv Smith at tight end probably being an all right play. Cheaper guy. Certainly you can get him in your lineup. I would see a 4 or 5 catch game from him, 40 to 60 yards, potentially a touchdown. And then Jefferson or Thielen, I'm not exactly sure which of those guys runs the more underneath routes, but typically in these types of games, it seems like they split. The last time they played, though, I think Jefferson went off for 180 and 2 touchdowns, so keep that in mind. And that's the 7th game on the slate. Let's head over to the 8th highest total here, which is San Francisco at Dallas. These games, like I said, we have those top ones, those top 3 in the 50s. A lot of these are just garbage, like totals 46, 45. These aren't anything that you get too excited about or look at it as something that you want to smash. So the San Francisco-Dallas game, 8th out of 11 on the slate, 45-point total from Vegas. Dallas 3-point home underdogs there. And the adjusted line play report is suggesting the Dallas pass game. So we have Andy Dalton leading the way there. Cooper, Lamb, and Gallup are the guys that you're going to want there in the pass game. Maybe the tight end. But for me, I think Cooper, if people are going to be attacking this game, is going to be the one that they're going to go after from Dallas. But all of these guys probably going to come in low rostership percentage, especially Dalton if you put him in a tournament lineup. I wouldn't. But if you think they're going to go off here on San Francisco with the pass protection at 11th, they should have some time. San Francisco 21 or 22 at generating a rush. I think the one play here that I want in this game would be Michael Gallup. He's going to be on the outside. San Francisco hasn't been very good on that recently. They are getting some of their defense back there, but Gallup's probably the one tournament guy that I'm going to want in a lineup or two. And then not playing anything here on cash game unless it's Ayuk or Jeff Wilson if we get Mostert ruled out. We actually see San Francisco pass game 7th in offensive pass protection, Dallas 23rd in generating a rush. San Francisco should have time to pass. They basically are out a bunch of their top guys, and when that happens, Debo out and Kittle out. We see Ayuk go bananas. He's going to be super popular play, but he's one of those mid-range wide receivers where if you're doing the one-offs, you can get him in. He's not terribly expensive, but he should produce. He's good for a cash game, I believe, and he probably will be an all right GPP play. Just expect him to come in a little bit chalkier than you would probably expect otherwise, but he's been balling out. I think he's top 3 in points per game over the last 5 weeks, so that guy, you could easily get you some money this week, especially in a cash game lineup as one of those middle tier type guys. And San Francisco should find themselves, they're not very good at offensive run blocking, which is surprising with the Shanahan system, but Dallas 32nd in adjusted line yards against the run. They should have an easier time of it. Jeff Wilson Jr., if he's going to be getting a bunch of volume, is somebody that you can get for a cash game, cheap lock, one of those free square type people, if you want to call him that. That's 8 out of 11 there. Let's go to number 9 out of 11 on the slate. That is the New York Jets at Los Angeles Rams. down here. This is one of those that I had talked about earlier in the podcast here. Los Angeles Rams tied for number 2 on the slate in team total, 30.25. They are tied with Baltimore there. But this is the ninth out of 11 game on the slate. We have Los Angeles Rams, 17-point home favorites over New York Jets. The Jets have been a weird anomaly throughout the entire season. Their run defense is actually very good. You see here, top 5. Rams have been smashing the ball down people's throats. We saw last week they just ran the ball over New England. New England's actually really bad against the run. Rams very good on the offensive run blocking side. I think this is one of those that's going to cancel out. And we saw some of that stuff earlier where it either cancels out or they have a bad run blocking offense. Like when they played Kansas City just threw the ball all over them. That's how they scored all their points. Kind of what I'm expecting in this Rams game, considering their offensive pass protection number 2, Jets 25th at generating a pass rush. The Rams know they're going to be in playoff contention. I don't think they want to just grind all of their running backs into the ground. I think they're going to rotate that and kind of save those guys, keep them fresh for the playoffs. They know they should win this. And I think this is kind of one of those games where we see the coach over there saying, hey, Goff, let's get you some confidence, and let's just bomb all over these guys. And I think that's what the game narrative is going to be in here. I think the Rams are going to score a bunch of their points through the air. So I'm looking at Goff in a lot of my stacks this week, getting them with Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, and even on the tight end side, I think we're going to see some creativity there, and I think Higbee might score, but Gerald Everett's somebody I think I'm going to get a little contrarian in some of my lineups. He's a lower-priced guy, and I think he has the upside of rushing it in from in close or taking one to the house. The dude's super athletic, so getting contrarian with that stack. They have a super high point total. They should score. It might not be one that a lot of people are on, so I think it's going to come in a little bit lower roster percentage, but I'm getting somebody like Goff, Woods, who's been getting the majority of the targets, and then grabbing somebody like an Everett, which is going to be a very low roster percentage GPP lineup that could offer a ton of upside there. I like that. On the New York Jets side, I wouldn't be looking at anything other than that the Rams defense should smash them right in the mouth. So 6 in the pass rush. If we're expecting them to be up by a ton, the Jets probably going to be passing quite a bit, generating a lot of pressure. Pick 6 special in here. Rams defense is a smash play. Get them in if you can. Not always the wisest to pay up at defense since it's such a high variance thing. Some of these low end guys, obviously a pick 6, take it to the house. They get 3 or 4 sacks. That team is outscoring somebody that's maybe in a smash spot like this. But keep that in mind. The Rams defense certainly in play here. That's it for that game. Let's go to number 10. So second to last one here. We have Seattle at Washington. And we'll get that right up here. 44.5 point total there. We have Washington 6-point home underdogs there. This is being bet down 2.5 points from Vegas. And basically we have Seattle and Washington defense in play here as the only thing that the adjusted line play is suggesting. Seattle side, we have defensive pass rush of 15. Washington offensive pass protection 24. Alex Smith ruled out. Throw in Dwayne Haskins. Dude doesn't seem to process information very well. A lot of poor throws from him. Probably not extremely prepared for this game. Seattle's pass rush has been getting pretty good recently, so keep Seattle's defense in mind. Washington side, we have their pass rush defense number 4. Seattle 30th in offensive pass protection. Washington should be all over Russell Wilson this game. And like I had said before with the Philly-Arizona game, when they're getting after those mobile quarterbacks, probably expect a few more rush attempts. But if he gets out of the pocket, Washington secondary isn't the greatest. Their front 7 is very good. So if he can get outside, scramble a few, I could certainly see him bombing one to DK Metcalf in this. But the offensive side, I'm not going to be doing anything based off the adjusted line play report here other than maybe Seattle low A-dot targets, but we've seen that in the past not really come out, and DK Metcalf is the one that just gets targeted all the time. You could say the same thing on the Washington side. If Seattle's going to get after them, you'd be looking at the lower A-dot targets from Washington, so maybe like a Logan Thomas. Haskins is there, so he's probably going to have a little bit different preferentials compared to what we've seen the rest of the season, since he kind of was benched there. But McLaurin was a favorite of his. So is Steven Sims at the end of last year, so he could potentially be there. But Cam Sims is the one that's getting like 90% of the snaps. He could be one of those sneaky, not necessarily super high upside guys, but somebody that gets you 6 catches, 50 yards, and a touchdown. I could see that from Cam Sims, and he's super cheap on both DraftKings and FanDuel this week. 44.5 point total there, pretty low. Not interested. Being bet down 2.5 from Vegas, so maybe a piece or two one-offs. But anyway, let's get on with the last game here. New England at Miami up here at game number 5. 41.5 point total. It's been bet down already. 2 points from Vegas. It didn't open very high at 43.5. It's been bet down even further. We have Miami actually only as 1.5 point home favorites in this. Really, there's nothing of importance here on the adjusted line play report other than Miami's defense and New England's run blocking. So Miami defense in play here, 9th in pass rush, generate a lot of pressure against New England's 23rd offensive pass protection. Cam Newton been turnover prone lately, and certainly a pick 6 potential there. Miami's been pretty solid against any quarterback that they've gone up against. For the most part, New England side, Miami improving on the defensive run side. Earlier in the year, they were really bad, but New England number 2 in offensive run blocking. If they're going to be running, it's going to be Damian Harris. With the 41.5 point total there and just the lowest on the slate by quite a bit, I'm not interested in getting really any pieces from this game. But if you're going to do it, Miami defense and Damian Harris. And I think that's about it for this slate. Just to kind of recap, as I said, it's an interesting slate. We have 3 of those games, 51 or more points. That's the Detroit, Tennessee, Kansas City at New Orleans. They're tied at 51.5, so you can get pieces of that. Houston at Indianapolis at 51, and those are the ones that you're going to be wanting to get pieces from. Philly at Arizona, it's kind of that interesting mobile quarterback one where you could get a piece here or there. Otherwise, those are like the 4 games I'd be looking at, and then getting Baltimore or the Rams pieces on some of those lower-end games. I think that's going to be your strategy for having success, not only in cash, but getting those high-end totals in the GPP tournament games this year. Or this week. I think with that being said, I think that's it for Week 15. I hope we can go out there and smash on the Week 15 advice that I just gave you. As always, it's Toddzilla1337 on Twitter. Go give me a follow. Hit me up. Zilla Fantasy Elite here on the YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button. Smash that bell so you get the updates when I release videos. And the Facebook page there that we see, we are there at Zilla Fantasy Elite. That has the most interaction and information on when these videos are going to be dropping, some of the lineups that I'm putting out. So give it a follow there on Facebook. That's going to be it for the Week 15 slate, guys. Thanks for listening in. Let's go win some money together. Bye.